Yo, what's going on, guys? So today is going to be the first episode of the How to Get Good series. This is going to be a tutorial from basically the fundamentals up to, the advanced mechanics. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Alright guys, so today the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our settings. So settings are pretty important, and I think a lot of people overlook them. So it's really important. This is the first step. The first controls you really want to look at are your camera settings, so making sure you turn camera shake off. That's really important. FOV, you want this at least, 107 is kind of the lowest people go. Any lower than that and you start to get a little too zoomed in, but pretty much everyone uses 110 or 109. Distance, everyone's really using about 270 nowadays. Some people using, down to 250, occasionally 240, but usually it's about 270 or 280 or 260, somewhere around here. Around 270 is where I'm at, and where most people are at. So height, kind of same thing. Most people are around 100, but a lot of people are using 90 and a lot of people are using 110. So right now I'm using 110. I wouldn't really go out of these three. These three are kind of the heights you want to be at. Angle, kind of same thing. The higher you are, so I'm at 110, the lower your angle, so -3. And then typically if you go down to 90, you're going to have this up to -5. And then at 100, you can have it anywhere -3 to -5. They all have different feels, but typically if you're at 100, you're going to be at -3. You don't really want to go above that. And if you're going to be at 90, usually you're going to be -5 or -4. Stiffness, pretty much everyone uses around either 0.35 up to around 0.45. This kind of the lower, kind of just under the halfway point is pretty much where people are at right now. I don't really know when I was at 0.4, 0.45. It doesn't really matter. Swivel speed, I like these as high as I can get them while being comfortable. I like it as high as I can so that I can just like flick my thumb like that and instantly see what I'm looking at. So just for example, if we turn this all the way down, now look how long I'm pushing all the way with my left thumb. Look how long it takes to go all the way there and all the way back, right? Very slow, and that's going to be wasting time, right? So I have it all the way up. You just one flick, I see over there, and then it instantly flicks back. Now these transition speed, this is fairly pretty much just preference. If we're going to be critical and say like if there is something better, typically higher is better, just because there's less time. So let me kind of snap back and forth. 1.9 is basically instant with a little bit of snap. 2.0, that's going to be the instantaneous snap. I'm not a big fan of that. You lose a sense of direction without the actual like camera turning, but typically you want as little time, and let me just go ahead and turn this down so I can show you guys what I'm talking about here. Turn this down. So you can see, look how long it takes for my camera to switch back to normal. It's like if I'm going for this boost and I want to check to see where I'm at, see how long it takes for my camera to go back. And I'm like, okay, I'm lined up, and then look how long it takes to go the other way. So in this transition, to me, it's very kind of almost motion sickening, where you can't really see what's going on during that turning. So that's why I like to have it up. Most players are going to be around, 1.4, 1.5, somewhere around here in the middle. I would recommend at least trying out 1.9, because you don't want to be looking away from the ball as much as possible. At higher levels, you really want to be looking at the ball as much as possible. So notice how quickly I can just, turn my camera there, see where I'm at, and switch back. So I'm wasting very little time. And so the next thing, so that was all cameras. Inverse swivel is just personal preference. It's just down is up and up is down. Now controls. This is really where we get to the meat. Personally, I think anyone below basically SSL level should have their sensitivity low. So either 1.0 or 1.1 or 1.2, right? So let me just show you here, 1.1, right? 1.2. And most pros are around, the lower end. So like somewhere between 1.2 is typically the lowest most pros will go, and 1.4. I would say this is still kind of on the low end. And then 1.5 is around the mid, and 1.6 is also kind of mid. And then once you get above that, so 1.7, this is the high end, right? And look how much space is still on here. Nobody really goes over around 2.0. There's going to be, there's actually still a lot of people that do that. I think Monkey Moon, he uses like 3 or something crazy, but you lose a lot of control the higher you go. So whenever you're learning, it's much more important to have control rather than being a little bit faster. And this will also help you focus on proper decision making and proper positioning. Now, controller dead zone, typically you want this as low as possible before you get stick drift. So for instance, if I put this all the way down to 0, you can see how my camera's shaking, right? That's what I'm talking about. So you want this kind of as low as you can get without stick drift. So for me, I have it around 0.07, but you can most people have the lowest around 0.05, and then the highest will be around 0.15. Typically, it's going to be between 0.05 and 0.1. Dodge dead zone isn't really that important. You just need to make sure the highest you really want to go is like 0.85. Really, I would suggest not going over 0.8. And the lowest you really want to go, for the most part, is around 0.4. This is like super sensitive, but typically you're going to see people around somewhere between 0.6 and 0.8. That's pretty much it. You want to turn controller vibration off just so we don't have our hands shaken. Now for interface, there's not really too much I like to do. I like to turn my nameplate scale up just a hair. So default's 100. I like to turn up just a little bit. Make sure the nameplate mode is on default. You don't want it on nearby because then like people's nameplates turn into triangles and they're harder to see. So you want this on default. Now video, this is where a lot of people have issues. First thing you want to do, make sure you're on full screen on your native resolution on your monitor. For me, most people, that's going to be 920 by 1080. Turn VSync off. This, you should never have that on. Very bad to have on. If you're doing cinematography, so if you're making your game look really pretty, you can turn that on so you have less stutters, but it's going to have the cost of adding input delay. So anti-aliasing, same thing. Not really the same as vertical sync, but this makes your game have less jagged edges. But you can see that now it's a little blurry. So I think most pros have this off, but it's really up to you how you prefer the game to look. Under quality, this should be high. If we go to high performance, we can see it's very ugly. So that you want to keep on high quality. And frames per second, we're gonna have this at your native FPS on your monitor. So if you have a 60 hertz monitor, put this to 60 or just above that. So if your monitor is 60, then have one, have 90. And if it's 144, you can have 144 or 240. So I'm just gonna have it at 144 because my computer's not that great. So I want to have it on the low end so it doesn't overperform. Now for textures and all these, right? If you want better performance, you just put them on high performance. If you want the game to look better, put it on high quality. These four don't really matter that much. Now, I would recommend turning basically all these checkboxes off. These kind of just get in the way, particularly like motion blur, lens, bloom, all this. Things you can optionally turn on if you want the game to look better. High quality shaders, ambient occlusion, and dynamic shadows. These make the game just look a little bit cleaner, right? Look a little better. Those are totally fine to have on, but I would definitely recommend turning the others off, except for, the bottom one, which would be transparent goalposts, of course, right? So that's pretty much it for the basic controls. Now let's go into the key bindings. So this is where we're going to this is pretty much optional, but this is what I would recommend if you're trying to get good at the game, like Grand Champ and above. You really want to have optimal key binds. So the default key binds are kind of bad. The default keybinds have jump on A, boost on B, power slide and arrow on X, and what that does is it makes your thumb have to do all of that. Or if you're gonna split that up, you're gonna have to use your claw grip, so you're gonna have to bring your index finger down to press, B or X or whatever, and it's really awkward. We can simplify things. So the idea with high-level controls is you want one finger to press one button at a time. So this will simplify it, make it easier for you to learn. Easiest thing to do, throw a boost on RB or R1, power slide and arrow on LB or L1. That'll make you use your boost and your jump and your power slide and arrow all with different fingers. So you have, jump with your thumb, boost with your right index finger, and power slide and arrow with your left index finger. This will allow you to press them all at the same time, which is very important for doing, fast aerials and also like speed flips and also like wave dashes, right? You got to push all these things at the same time, right? So very important to be able to press those at the same time, and also like, I'm holding jump and, pressing jump again while holding boost the whole time. And yeah, it's very important to have free control over pressing those individually. Now, what you might have missing is your arrow left and right. So now we come down here, arrow left and right, and we're going to put arrow left and right on X and B respectively. So arrow left on X, arrow right on B. This allows you to, do your tornado spins and your, whatever, you're freestyling. I pretty much use this every time I'm aerialing. And the reason why it's a good idea to have these on X and B rather than on like L1 and R1, for instance, is because whenever you're jumping, you don't really need to air roll at the same time. Typically, you're only going to start air rolling after you've already used both your jumps. Your drive is still going to be R2 or right trigger. Your reverse is still going to be left trigger. Now, things to note, if you change your settings, if you change your keybinds, particularly, boost or air roll, anything like that, you're going to struggle and you're going to be, pretty much worse than you were before for probably around a week. So just keep that in mind. If you switch your bindings, be prepared to be at a lower level than you were for at least a week. And if you're around champ or grand champ, it might even be a little longer than that. Might be even 2 weeks. Or if you're like, you know, grand champ or SSL, it might even take up to 3 weeks to get back to where you were. But a week or two in the long run, so in the course of months and years, a week or two is nothing, right, when you think about it. That's pretty much all I have for you for today. I covered pretty much every setting I can think of. If you guys have any questions, make sure to just leave a comment. And hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Peace.